podcast is proudly sponsored by Philips OLED Plus Ambilight TV. OLED Plus is the name given to the multi-award-winning combination of the latest and best OLED panel technology, enhanced Philips P5 dual-engine picture processing, the next generation of Philips Ambilight, plus superb sound by Bowers & Wilkins. Philips OLED Plus delivers the best TV picture and sound quality as an immersive performance unmatched in the premium TV market. Discover more at www.philips.com/OLED.
Hello and welcome to the AV Performance Podcast for Monday the 28th of November. If you're watching us live, it's 7 PM. Welcome along to YouTube. Thank you for joining us. The chat window is open this evening. If you have any questions for us, get your questions in there right now and we'll answer them as we go on this evening. Joining me tonight are regulars, Ed, Selley, Ian, Collen and Jules. Good evening, guys.
Hello.
Evening.
And a return visit for Doug Pyper, our new reviewer. Hi, Doug.
Evening.
Right, so like I say, chat window open. If you've got any questions, get them in there for us this evening. We'll get them answered. Other things that we're going to go through tonight. So we are going to look at 2 JVC projectors, 1 bulb, 1 laser. Ed's going to look at some speakers. Funnily enough, that's what Ed does for a living. So we're going to talk about speakers tonight. But Doug's also going to talk about speakers. He's going to talk about home cinema speaker as well as a new AVR, or is it an AV amplifier these days? It's hard to tell. I think you can tell by the first 3 letters in the model number. So looking at that, it's an AV amplifier. So Doug's going to talk about them. We're also going to talk to Jules about what it takes to be a qualified calibrator. Can anybody become a qualified calibrator? Can anybody call themselves a calibrator by having no education whatsoever? We're going to discuss that tonight. We're going to discuss how you get trained and why you might want to do that and how successful a business you could build by doing that if that's what takes your interest. We're also going to look at the worlds of HiFi and AV in terms of news. So Ian's going to bring the latest news. And yeah, we're going to answer your questions. And we're also going to wrap up with what's caught our eye on the small screen telly, what we've been watching recently and what we recommend. So since the last podcast, not a lot going on from me. I've been working a hell of a lot. We did the Editor's Choice Awards recently. There's only projectors left to publish. So if you want to see what we've crowned as the award winners this year, head over to AV Forums. Drop down menu in editorial, you'll find Editor's Choice Awards. Click on that. It'll bring you back all the articles that have been published so far, and there are also separate podcasts, so you can go and have a look at the YouTube channel and find the podcast relating to whichever category it is that you're interested in, whether it's TV, home AV, that kind of thing. So yeah, I've been doing a lot of that and walking the dog a lot when I haven't been working, and painting, not artistic in any way, motion is what I've been doing. Didn't have an easel or anything, no, just a roller. So yeah, the old office stroke flat, whatever you want to call it, that I used to work in is up for sale soon. So I've been getting that all spruced up and looking nice and pretty. So you see me this evening, hopefully without any specks of paint anywhere, because
well, it helps the 5th window this evening. We're all a bit smaller than we usually are. So
yeah, it does.
Good.
Ed, what have you been up to?
I, like you, it's crazy. You obviously, there's this childish hope you have of actually stopping work for a period of time over Christmas, which means you just front load everything. My hallway is a catastrophe at the moment. There is stuff absolutely everywhere, and more stuff is coming. I have wireless speakers all over my lounge. Yeah, it's bonkers. I mean, I'm not complaining. It's all work. There's some cracking things turning up for AVF at the moment. These are the December items for January that start to turn up. I'm breaking the habit of a lifetime for doing it quite early. I did some Christmas shopping yesterday, which was less ghastly than I feared it would be. It was busy, but it was busy within manageable situations, and I got to go to the pub afterwards. So, yeah. If you're going to do Christmas shopping, go to the pub afterwards. It improves things.
Well, the other trick is go when England are playing in the World Cup.
Yeah.
That's the plan for tomorrow evening. Metro Centre.
I mean, you're not watching England play, Phil?
Why would I watch England? I don't deserve that punishment. I don't deserve that punishment.
Well, I mean, I haven't. I'm semi-proud to say I was in the pub at the same time as football was happening last night, but I haven't actively set out to watch a single minute of it, and I'm not missing it. So
yeah, I won't support anything that. Yeah, that's as much as I'm going to say. Right, Jules, what have you been up to? Did you survive Italy?
Yeah, just about. I was not very well, but committed to helping with the teaching of the calibration course over there. I'd say Italy, first time I've been, it was really, really nice. Up in the north, in the Trento region. Getting messages from my wife saying, "Well, how's the pasta? How's the pizza? How's the gelato?" I have no idea because I couldn't taste a thing. So it was disappointing from that point of view, but it was beautiful, really beautiful.
It is. It's an outrageously beautiful part of the world.
Yes. And then we came back into Stansted, and he came back from the sun disappeared. I've not seen it again since. Where's it gone?
Yeah,
it's always the same coming back for Vegas. It's sun for a week, and sun all the way back on the flight. Well, not really because it's
and it's just been pissing down.
Yeah, and then you get back to the misery that is the UK. Yeah. Doug, cheer us up. Cheer us up.
That cheery note.
What are you up to?
What have I been up to? Well, we're getting ready for Christmas, aren't we? I've got a 9-month-old running around the house, so don't really have much time to do anything else other than chase him around, and it's his first Christmas. So I've been doing that. On the subject of houses, we're in the process of buying a new one, so getting closer, ever closer to getting that. Yeah, so it's stressful, but we're coming to the end of that. Hopefully completing this week. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed for you.
Yeah, exactly. So that's pretty much what I've been doing. Oh, and doing a bit of work for AVF, of course, with the HTA9 review. I think that went up. Was it Sunday that went up?
Yeah, I mean, thanks. I mean, it's been one of those years again. In terms of supply and getting samples and so on, you're getting to the end of the year now where, the supply chains are starting to get back to normal. So kit's now turning up. But for a long time, it's been hassle getting samples. So thank you, Doug, for the work you've done.
No, it's a pleasure.
The last 2 weeks, you've really gotten through them all. So thank you very much for that. A lot of work there. Right. Do I have to ask you, it's just video games again?
There might have been some gaming involved, a little bit, but in my defence, it's also for work. I do have like a separate side gig where I've got to do some more Minecraft guides. So basically, playing a lot of Minecraft. But
you are my son's hero. If you ever wanted validation, my son believes. I mean, he has some misplaced ideas about the importance of YouTube in my career. But when I said that I knew someone that is paid to play Minecraft, he basically venerates you as a god.
I spent the weekend learning how to make sliding doors. So that was Minecraft. So if he wants to learn how to make cool doors, like when you walk into a supermarket, then I can fill him in. And also, if you want a cheap Christmas gift idea, I might be able to point you in the direction of an annual that's helped.
Do they have power washers in Minecraft?
That's going to be the crossover event of 2023, isn't it?
Yeah, if anybody wants any pointers on the best game of 2023, I could very much help them out.
Excellent. So we've all been busy to get on with the show tonight. So let's move our new patrons. So thank you very much for your support, guys. If you want to sign up, it's patreon.com/AV forums. And welcome to our new patrons. Who did I choose as the victim to read this out?
You chose me. So it's Mr. APBP, Tim C, George Loazo, Rick Buchan, and Andrew Caruana Luff.
Excellent.
Several of those incorrectly.
That's our new patrons. Thank you very much for your support. It really is appreciated. And of course, there is now 2 levels of support. The second one, a little bit more expensive than the first one, but you get early access to our editorial. So you get to read our reviews. You get to read a lot of Ed's HiFi stuff, as well as TVs and so on. You get them at least a day earlier than everybody else, so you can stay right up to date and get all our reviews nice and early. That's one of the benefits of that membership. So again, thank you very much for your support there. You can also send us a donation. The usual details normally pop up on the screen, but we won't do that tonight. But you can do the super chat and so on. So we'll try and get some details for that. Hopefully somebody will write it in the running order, and I can come back to it a little bit later on and remind you of the addresses, because I haven't done it for months and I've forgotten what the addresses are for the donations, but I'm sure Stuart will sort that out for me. Right, and competition time. Ed?
Yes. All right. It's very straightforward. It's a single competition prize, but it's a hell of a competition prize. You can win the ultimate streaming amplifier, courtesy of Roxanne. It's worth £1,500. It's the Atessa streaming amplifier. We've reviewed this on the site. It's very, very good. It's very good at being an amplifier, and thanks to having Blue OS, it's very good at being a streamer as well. That's open to all eligible AV Forums members resident in the UK. And we have a previous competition winner. Mike FTD won the DJI Mini Tow drone with MPB. So well done to him. Cracking prize. I hope he's not annoying his neighbours with it. So,
excellent. Again, if you want to make a donation, I now have this stuff, technology and all that kind of thing. It just appears in front of me. So it's streamlabs.com/AV Forums, or you can use the YouTube super chat. If you feel like giving a donation, it would be appreciated. It always is. All the support that you give us does help us provide and better our editorial coverage and so on. And one day we'll do a good podcast. We promise. One day. Right, let's move on. News time. So Ian, what's happening in the world of AV?
Okay, hang on a second. What? Sorry, it was one of those things where I had the wrong page. I didn't have my notes.
Yeah, JetWash Simulator open. And,
you got me. My head's spinning there. I'm just thinking about Power Wash and Minecraft combined. I'm on a high that I may never come down from. But yeah, no. The news that we posted today was from LG Display, who pretty much confirmed that all new OLED displays coming out of its two main manufacturing bases since Q2 this year have been equipped with the OLED EX technology. This is the new technology which promises the likes of a 30% brightness increase, possibilities of slimmer frame designs, and new machine AI learning system. So it's quite exciting stuff. I mean, obviously, it doesn't mean that all new TVs since then will have the OLED EX technology, because this is only two out of its many manufacturing bases that it's confirmed has been outputting this new tech. And presumably it's still working through some of its older OLED panels as well. But it does suggest that certainly the new OLED EX technology in those panels is going to be prominent into 2023 and beyond, I assume.
Yeah, and there are various levels of OLED EX. So you will get 30% brightness without a heatsink. That's one of the models. I think they call that the Prestige model, or it's something like that. They've got code names for them. The other one that has a heatsink, again, better brightness, but also better full screen brightness, and a more relaxed ABL circuit, so you get more of that brightness. So those are the OLED EX. They translate to OLED Evo under the LG Electronics banner. But LG Evo is not just the panel. It's really important to point this out. And LG are at pains to point this out. It's not just the panel, it's also the processing behind that and so on that make up their Evo. But it does contain the EX panel. And obviously the EX panel is available from LG Display to a lot of other manufacturers like Philips and Panasonic and so on. So yeah, you'll see those panels in more manufacturers' TVs moving on. And it's a good thing because they have all been excellent this year. The TV awards this year were really, really difficult because they are very, very, very similar, all of these TVs. Jules will back me up on this one because he calibrates a lot of them as well in the field. Yeah, very close. But the technology is great. It's moving on. And talking about technology, we've got a video coming up very soon where I went over to Ghent in Belgium to visit Philips, and we shot a video over there with Danny Tack, going through lots of their technology, mainly the OLED plus 937 and 907. But we do talk about technology, the P5 processor, and QD OLED that they are assessing at the minute, and could be bringing that to market probably end of 23, 24 if they do that, probably a 24 model. But yeah, that's another manufacturer looking at QD OLED as well as maybe adding that to the premium line. So look out for that video. It'll be coming up on our YouTube channel very soon. So that's AV news. Let's move on to HiFi. Ian.
Yeah, this first one comes from Pro-Ject Audio, which has launched the new MaiA DS3 integrated amplifier. I'm sure by now everybody's already seen the Editor's Choice Awards, the HiFi Editor's Choice Awards, where the MaiA S3 picked up the best affordable stereo amplifier. And the DS3 comes in a little bit more expensive than that, though, at £1,049. It is packing 140 watts per channel, 9 inputs, a new Delta Sigma DAC, comes with Bluetooth and aptX HD support. So it's looking, very interesting indeed.
Yeah, I was momentarily confused when I saw the price because I thought that's a lot of money to add a streaming module, but it's enormously more powerful than the bog standard MaiA. I mean, we've had this discussion. I think the 23 watts is perfectly adequate. Some people on the forum vehemently disagree with me. Well, here is your option. You get lots more power, although it's now into 4 figures. But no, I've requested one, so we'll have a play with it in due course, and we'll see how we crack on with it.
And people always say to us, Ian, that we review extortionately expensive equipment, and a bit of news on a new pair of open back headphones.
Yeah, I'm not sure that's affordable. I did have two options in the One was rather more affordable, but yeah, on the more expensive end of the scale, from Yamaha, they announced their new YH5000 SE open back headset. SE in the name standing for Special Edition, which probably explains the price tag a little bit. The headset also sees the return of Yamaha's orthodynamic driver technology, so it does have quite a bit of history to it, and a lot of work's been put into it over the past sort of 5 or 6 years as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. But it does come with a price tag of £4,799. So
no, it's affordable.
Well, I mean, look, here's the thing. The irony is that this market, it's still small. But we've tested headphones at this price, and I would very much like to get my sticky fingers. Actually, no, Yamaha, if you're listening, I promise to wash my hands first if you send a review sample. But no, when you read, I mean, I got sent the full press release for this. Ian will have done. Ian has done a tremendous job of turning it into something which is intelligible by standard humans. I mean, they've gone to, suffice to say, they have gone to town on this. I'm always conscious of when I say that something that costs £1,800 represents value for money. It's ridiculously expensive. However, there are processes at work that you need to be a company the size of Yamaha to do at all. Forget at a given price at all. They are technologically quite extraordinary things. Not the prettiest headphone I've ever seen in my life, not going to lie, but beauty is in the eye of the beholder. If there is a genuine interest amongst podcast listeners and forum members for me to have a go on these, I'll see what I can do. I mean, Yamaha is just down the road, so I can do a sort of smash and grab and see what we can get sorted from there.
Excellent stuff. So that wraps up the news for this week, and obviously if you're interested in AV news, we publish news stories almost on a daily basis. Ian does that, so head over to the forums and keep up to date with everything that's happening in the world of hi-fi and AV. But we're going to move on to reviews, and we're going to go to Ed first. Ed, you've been looking at some speakers, funnily enough, being a review. What have you been looking at, and are they any good?
Right, this is the PSB Passif 50. It is a brand new model that, in the great tradition of speakers we've been looking at recently, doesn't look brand new at all. It is, in fact, PSB's 50th birthday present to itself. They have been trading for 50 years. The Passif 50 is based on a design which actually didn't break cover until 1974, so it's just a mere 48 years old. And this is one of the most interesting speakers I've tested in a very long time. The review will be going up. It will cover all of the technology. Suffice to say, it's called the Passif 50 because whilst it looks like a three-way, it is a two-way loudspeaker. The bottom radiator is entirely passive. It doesn't have machinery behind it, as was the case with the original. It does make for an extremely room-friendly device. I'll say that for free. But I think it's more important that in the course of the last 18 months, there's been a number of retro products have made it through onto AV forums. Mission 770, Simon has done the Mission 700. The Neat Petite Classic Product of the Year is based on a design which is 30 years old. The PSB looks magnificently retro. I mean, it really does. And they've done a really neat job on attention to detail, but it doesn't sound retro. It took a while to get my head around what was going on when I was listening to them. The closest speaker in behavioral terms that we've looked at to the Passif 50 price at this point is the, ironically, also got 50 in it, the Q Acoustics Concept 50. The PSB is built like a lorry. The cabinet is extremely inert. There's very little coloration. And then because it's got that wide baffle, you get that very impressive sort of wide soundstage effect. The other interesting thing that happened is I had to do a rewrite on this review. It hasn't changed the score. but it has framed some of its behaviour, because I was very fortunate to get some time interviewing Paul Barton, he of PSB Loudspeakers. It's Paul, presumably his middle name, Barton. And this comes down to subjectivity, which I know some of you find maddening about hi-fi reviews. His view, quite correctly, is that a speaker is a window into the music. Absolutely nothing more. It should bring nothing of itself into the mix. Now, I think that's fair and good, and this speaker does that tremendously. My argument would be that there are other designs available at the price, which I find, you may call it coloration, I would call it a degree of engagement, which I didn't necessarily always get out of the Passif 50. It is a tremendously neutral, transparent, and tractable loudspeaker. What you hear is pretty much what's on the list. So it's the sort of thing I would suggest that you demo first and get a bit of time listening to it, because it won't be for absolutely everybody, but for people that are looking for something which behaves absolutely like a modern monitor, but will blend in with mid-century furniture, has a nice retro vibe to it. This is sort of one of one. The only other thing I would say, and I did have to actually embarrassingly point this out to Paul, I have been reviewing loudspeakers in this house, the house before, for some years. This is the first loudspeaker I've ever tested where the moment I put the grills on, both cats went, wow, and just got stuck into it with absolute gumption. They are, I don't have clever cats, I've pointed this out before, but they are completely and utterly incapable of telling the difference between a scratching post and the grill of the PSB Passif 50. So please don't say you weren't warned. If you wish to combine cat ownership and Passif 50 ownership, you might be in for a spot of bother there. I've actually got to get them back into their boxes. They've been sat behind on the partition between my lounge and where I sit to do the podcast. Most of the time, speakers sit grills out. These ones have to sit with their grills absolutely up against the wall to prevent more humiliating damage being done. So, yes, that's a slightly different situation. But this is a very, very talented product, and it's different. PSB has still kept everything that makes modern PSB loudspeakers what they are. They've simply dressed it in a piece of history from their past. It's a fascinating piece of kit, and I hope you enjoy the review when it goes live.
Yeah, we're going live soon. Anybody got any questions for Ed? No. Okay.
Very thorough, you see.
You escaped there. Yeah, very thorough. Well done, Ed. Right, so let's move on to projectors. Home cinema only exists when there's a projector. Ooh, controversy. Controversy.
Yep.
No, screens are getting bigger. We get that. Direct view TVs can produce fabulous images. But for me, and I know Jules will agree with me, and a handful of other people on AV forums, a reflected, projected image is cinema. That's what you get at the cinema, and recreating that at home is the goal of many out there. And to do that, it's expensive, and it's just getting more expensive as things go on, like everything else in life. But I looked at two projectors that were incredibly similar, yet incredibly different in their approach, from the same manufacturer, using the same D-ILA chips. So we're talking about two JVC models here. I looked at the NZ7 and the NP5. Now, the NZ7 is their fluorescent laser diode projector, so it uses laser light. It's bloody expensive. It's £11,500. You need to use it in a perfect room if you want to get the absolute best out of it in terms of dynamic range, contrast, and so on. You can't stick it in a room that's painted white. It just won't do its thing, and it has to be used in a dedicated room. The same for the MP5. It has to be used in the right environment, and a lot of negativity towards these expensive projectors is that people do stick them in rooms with bright walls and all the rest of it and light reflecting onto the screen, and they don't look how we describe them in our reviews. So that's the first point. If you're going to go and buy one of these, make sure your room's up to it. If your room is not up to it, save your cash. You really need to have the absolute best to get the absolute best out of these. But boy, are these two projectors very, very good. There's just something about the JVC image. I've had the two Sonys in here, and the Sonys are superb projectors, absolutely superb. Yet there's something about the Sony image that I think anyway, and certainly, in side-by-side tests and so on, it has a slightly sharper image, but a more digital-looking image. Lots of image processing going on with the Sony, and a lot of people like that. So I'm not going to take that away from Sony. They do some fantastic projectors. However, the JVC just has this analog, is how I describe it, look. It's not soft. It's just not overly sharp, overly digitally sharp. It's still sharp. It uses 65mm lens. It's the same lens in both of these projectors, by the way, 17 element lenses. Most of the technology is the same on these projectors, apart from the lighting. And the NP5 doesn't do the E-shift, the 4K to 8K E-shift. It doesn't do that. Everything else is more or less the same on these machines. The chassis are almost identical. The way that the lens system works, lens memory, the menu systems, more or less exactly the same. And in terms of performance, very, very similar. Even though there's a big difference in price, they're very, very similar. What you get with laser is the advantages of laser. So you are never going to get half-life in the whole lifetime of this projector. And what I mean by half-life is that if you have a bulb projector, by the time you hit 3,000 hours, you're on half-life. You're at half the brightness you were at the beginning of that bulb's life. You never get that with laser. Laser will go 20,000 hours, which works out at about 28 years watching a 2.5-hour film every day. So you're never gonna wear this thing out. The other thing is bulb management. If you've ever had a projector of any type, you really have to manage the bulb. You don't want to switch it on and then switch it off straight away, because that creates a lot of strain on the bulb, and you can see the bulb. You get what's called early life, where the bulb will just give up if it has too many instances of switching on and switching off in very, very short periods. You need to run a bulb up to temperature and keep it at temperature for a small amount of time, and then it needs to cool properly as well. So you can't just switch a projector off and then take the plug out the wall, for example. You have to stick it into standby and then wait at least an hour for it to do its whole shutdown process and cool the cooling fans, cool the bulb and so on, to get the best out of that bulb's life. Laser, don't have to do that. Don't have to worry about that. Instant on, instant off. Not quite instant on, but you can switch it on and switch it off again within 5 minutes, and you're not going to damage it in any way whatsoever. The other thing, Jules, is color accuracy, and spectrum of light is different from a laser source than it is from a bulb source. So you are going to have slight differences in image quality in those terms, in terms of color purity and so on. But is that worth the extra money on top? So the NP5 is £7,500 SRP. The NZ7 £11,500. I think you've got to pick your poison here. Pick the one that best suits your needs. They're both very, very similar in terms of performance when you're watching an image, but they go about it completely different ways, and it's up to you in terms of what that value is to you. But yeah, absolutely cracking projectors. The image quality is absolutely superb. The only thing I would ask JVC is please give us proper calibration controls in the projector. Don't force us to use an AutoCal software system with, I'll say, compromised meters and only certain meters. Some of us have invested, especially professional calibrators, have invested in incredibly accurate meters to read, especially laser projectors. You need the right meter to read that properly. And if you're not allowing the end user or the professional calibrator to use that to get the machine calibrated in perfectly, then I think you're doing a disservice. So JVC, please reconsider. Please give us back the gamma editor that we used to have and the calibration controls built in, and the option to use whichever meter we happen to have in our bag. Whether it's a professional calibrator, whether it's an enthusiast, give us a choice, please, because that's the only negative I can point to these projectors. Plus the fact that you need to spend an absolute fortune on the room first before you put the projector in it. But
details.
Yeah, just little details. So there you go. The reviews are up on the site. Like I say, very, very similar machines, yet completely different. Excellent from JVC. So Anything you want to add to that, Jules? Because I know you've got quite a bit of experience.
Yeah, done a lot of work with these projectors, and just endorse everything you're saying. It's really superb, and everything is based on fundamentally on that black level. And as you say, if you put that in a light colored room, you are not getting that. Yeah. And so, there's no point in putting the JVC in there. Projectors do not create black light. It's just an absence of light. So if you're reflecting light from the screen off the wall, it gets back onto the screen again, and ruins your contrast. So I have people who come to me for advice and say, what would you suggest as a new projector? I need to upgrade. What better blacks? And my first question is, what color is your room? Because the cheapest upgrade many people will make, and it doesn't just apply to JVCs, most projectors will benefit from a darker decor. So, a couple of tins of paint is probably the cheapest upgrade you'll ever make. And
it doesn't have to be black paint.
No, not in all circumstances. I love black, though.
There is the black side of things. But if you
come to the dark side,
you have others that live with you that probably don't want to sit in a black hole. There are other colors that do work incredibly well.
That's true. And you can also have an ALR screen, which will help. But they're more expensive than normal screens anyway, so you are paying a little extra for that. But it might get you around the whole partner acceptance factor.
Yeah. But again, as a TV reviewer, I'm going to turn around and say the best image is a projected image.
It is subjective, isn't it? But I totally agree. For me, sitting in front of a projector watching a movie, it stinks of cinema. It just, for me, maybe we're just old, but it's nostalgia, whatever.
Whatever sentiment you might have towards projector, I would regret to inform you that we are old.
Yeah.
I'm afraid
no
escaping that.
Doug, did you just purchase one of these?
I was just about to say, I've got one in my room, which is actually painted quite dark and has an ALL screen.
Did you go for a bulb or a fricking laser?
Oh, I can't afford the laser. No, I went for I went for the bulb. I mean, you like Phil said, you get loads of the same performance, don't you? You just don't get the the longevity and the instant on and instant off that you get with laser. But I wasn't willing or able to spend the several £1,000 extra to realise those kind of small gains.
I mean, I'll let you off because you are buying a house. I feel that's a not unreasonable sacrifice to make.
Yeah, but it's good.
I need to buy a house to put this in a dedicated room at some point.
Well, no, absolutely. So.
Excellent. Right, so let's move on then. Let's go to Doug. Doug, you've been looking at a couple of products. I'm really interested in the Perlistens. Tell us more about them, because there's a lot of talk about these online, a lot of hype. Is it deserved?
It's definitely deserved. They are absolutely phenomenal speakers. They're certainly the best speakers that I've reviewed. I mean, I haven't reviewed that many for this site, but they're certainly the best speakers that I've ever heard in my room. And well, they should be. The total package cost, I think, was somewhere north of £36,000, which is quite pricey.
Bargasm.
I mean, I think I actually said in the review, this is actually genuinely good value though, because you get state-of-the-art performance here. They're super linear. I've posted the frequency response charts up on the review. They're super linear. I think the towers go down to, they got reasonable output down to 20 hertz actually. The subwoofer was, I think it was 92 kilograms, which took about several people to get into my room. I stayed well clear because I didn't want to injure myself. But that had something like 3,000 watts of amplifier behind it and two 15-inch drivers. So this is absolutely phenomenal output stuff. But aside from the output, which is what gets it the THX Dominus certification, it just sounds fantastic. There's just phenomenal clarity to it, and I guess one of the reasons for that is the waveguide that each of them feature. It's got what's called a DPC, which is directivity pattern control waveguide, which is a beryllium tweeter hedged by two 28mm midwoofers. And the effect of that is to produce this extremely narrow vertical directivity. And you can see this on the review again, you can see the polar charts. There's just not very much energy going anywhere other than straight at you. And the kind of subjective effect of that was just total clarity. They are so crystal clear. It's like nothing I've heard. They're genuinely phenomenal speakers. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed them. The other interesting thing that you'll see when one of the first things you notice when you look at them is they've got these curiously checkered woofers. And that's a new material called thin ply carbon diaphragm. And this is literally space age material. This is literally on the rotor blades of NASA's Mars rover, or the helicopter that they flew onto Mars. So
I do like the fact that you can say things like that, because let's face it, none of us are wandering off to Mars to check.
Oh, you can find pictures. You can find pictures. But no, it's literally space age material, and the kind of the purpose of it is you can engineer the resonance across the driver's surface area, and you can control the breakup modes on the surface area. And effectively, what that produces is a much more linear response of the woofers that employ it, and everything other than the beryllium tweeter, which is itself like a fairly high-end material for a tweeter driver diaphragm. They all feature this material. So all of the driver material, all of the diaphragm material is super high end, and that's why you can see on the frequency response charts, it's just a straight line. These things are phenomenal. So yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed my time with them. I didn't test them anywhere near their limits, of course. They're THX Dominus certified, which is up to 6,500 cubic feet, I want to say, which I think I worked out would be a room, THX reference levels at about 6 meters seating distance in a room that's about 10 meters by 6 meters by 3 meters high. So,
substantial.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's producing, peaks of 105 decibels.
Wow.
Within low kind of distortion thresholds.
Yeah.
So the output for days on these things, and all of it's super clear.
Yeah. So the review is up there if people are interested to find out a little bit more about the Perlistens, and especially if you've got 36 grand lying around to spend at this moment in time, then go and have a read of Doug's review there. And Doug, you've also been looking at an AVR, or an AVC, as you'd say.
An AVC, yes.
AVC. So from Denon, and it seems like a lot for the money. Tell us about it.
Yes, tons. So it's the AVC X3800H, which is 11.4 channels. I think they rated it at 180 watts, but actually if you look at what it can actually drive, it's more like a closer to 100 watts when 2 channels are driven, which is still plenty of output for most rooms. 11.4, so the 0.4 signifies that there are 4 discrete subwoofer outputs, which is, I think, unheard of at this price. And certainly it was 2 outputs, subwoofer outs, on the preceding Denon, the 3700. And it's very interesting the way Denon are managing the subwoofer outs on this. They've got something called directional bass, which they didn't have on the previous generation, which essentially carves the room into 4 bass zones. And let's assume you've got 4 subwoofers, 1 in each corner. They'll direct the bass from the closest speakers to those subwoofers to those subwoofers. So the idea is that you get stereo bass and stereo bass behind you. Unfortunately, I've only got 2 subs in the room, and I couldn't test that, but I'd love at some point to test it, because I know some people are really fond of that kind of stereo bass idea. So that's a great feature. The other interesting thing, and this is the thing that's drawn quite a lot of attention to the new range of Denon and Marantz products, is the prospect of Dirac coming around the corner. So they've always had Odyssey room correction. but they've now promising integration with Dirac. It's not here yet. I think their target is somewhere around spring 2023. But when these do get Dirac, that's going to be an 11.4 channel AV amplifier with both Dirac and Odyssey at £1,500, and I don't think there's anything close to that at that price point.
Right. Excellent. That sounds like a bargain, but there's a question. Have you seen the question in the chat window there, Doug?
I haven't seen the question.
Right. It says, hello everyone. I've recently got a Denon 3800H in my new home cinema, so keen to hear your thoughts on it tonight. I really like the sound, but the interface and remote is a bit laggy.
The remote is a little bit laggy. I would say when you control the volume, if you're not careful, and you hold the volume down for a little bit, it will zoom right up. So you do need to be very careful with that. But I got used to that after a while. I didn't think the interface was too laggy though. I actually quite liked the interface. They've got a new GUI on this range, which is really slick. It's really nice looking. They've done a great job of it. It's the slickest I've seen on any AV amplifier or processor at any price. So it may well be a little bit laggy. I don't remember the interface being terribly laggy, but certainly the remote control was a tad laggy.
Okay. Right, so if anybody wants to find out more about this, Doug's review is up on AV Forums right now. So go and have a look. It's on the homepage if you want to find out a little bit more. And of course, keep the questions coming in. We're in for another 20 minutes yet. So if you have questions, get them in here on the chat window. We'll try and answer them. A couple of bits about UST projectors. Not my specialist area because I haven't seen many of them just yet, but we'll take note of the question and try and come back with some of the answers on those. John Archer's been looking at the USTs for me recently. So we'll get those questions answered for you. And looking, there's no other questions just yet. So let's move on to the next section, which is, of course, Jules. We're going to talk about calibration training, how you become a calibrator and so on, and is it worth it? So I guess maybe tell people what your history is with it, why it interested you and why you went down that career path. And
sure. Yeah. Well, I was just a normal AV Forums member, joined in 2004 and was, had a hiatus in what I was doing. I was part-time doing something else. And my daughters went to school, didn't need me to look after them anymore. Goodbye, Daddy. Actually, they stopped calling you Daddy at some point. No, they just call you Dad, and that's the end. But so and actually, by coincidence, AV Forums brought THX to town, didn't they? 2011.
Yes,
London,
we did.
Which is where we first met.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember it was a really big course. There were about 30 plus people on that course. There was a real buzz, and there was a huge variety of people from different backgrounds. So there were a lot of what we call AV installers, so a lot of custom installation people. There were people like myself who were just, come from an amateur calibration background. I had projectors, calibrated my own projectors, and wanted to learn more about this and was interested in going professional, seeing if I could make a job out of it. And then that was quite a long time ago now. Was it 2011? A lot has happened, and our industry's changed as well.
Absolutely.
So the THX are no longer running calibration courses. You keep your THX certification if you're already certified, but that remains now that we have two bodies that are training ISF and PVA, whom I'm associated with, and we're both running calibration courses in various parts of the world.
Right. So that's if you want to go down the professional route. So the route is that you find a body that you want to be associated with and who provide training. So that's either the Imaging Science Foundation, who are the ISF, or PVA, which is Professional Video Alliance.
Correct.
Did I get that right? Yeah.
Yeah, you didn't come unstuck with that one.
No, some people do, and I did the first few, and like you say, PVA. Yeah. Unstuck. Nice. I got that one eventually. Well done, Jules. So those are the two bodies, and of course, you pay to be qualified and trained. But it's not just a case of anybody can turn up at these courses, pay their money, and then suddenly become professional calibrators, because you are assessed after that. There are exams at the end, or tests or so on. So you have to be competent at what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think you need, if you know absolutely nothing about AV and you turn up to a course, you're going to struggle. It helped to have, if you to have been keen on the, to be an amateur hobbyist, somebody who's interested in televisions and projectors, some sort of, you've frequented forums like myself. You need some sort of background before you go and do that course, because otherwise you're not going to understand the thing. But you don't have to understand everything. And I think that's part of the value of a systematic course. We've all got, and this applies to many different trades, we've all got our own predilections. I like history, so I read a lot of military history, but that doesn't necessarily mean I understand anything about the Tudors. So the value of a course is that you get to cover everything. And so on the courses, both ISF and PVA will cover projectors, projector calibration, and TV calibration. So you'll get a little dose of everything, and you'll cover all kinds of topics from HDR to SDR, and how you handle that with different displays, etc. So you should get hands-on training with all kinds of different technologies.
And that's one of the things that has changed since I did my training, which is HDR. And it was Wild West for a long time.
It was
standards and so on. But we're getting to a point now where there are those standards. There are things that you need to follow and you need to calibrate for. And obviously, you do a lot of the studio calibrations as well. So color grading and monitors and so on. And these guys need to do it in HDR as well. So is it more of an extra day onto the course now to
it is for that? Yeah, I mean, I think when we started, back in the day, it was maybe 3-day course. And it's almost, it's at least 4 days now. I forget how many days I was in Italy. I was drugged up with night nurse throughout the day. I ran out of Lemsips. It's 4 days, and it's examined at the end of it as well. And the other thing is you have to. So not only is there an exam, a written exam, but there's also you have to submit a certain number of calibrations with the graphs and the reports, those calibrations. But I would have to emphasize that just like when you're learning to drive and you get your pass, that doesn't necessarily mean you can hop into any old car. And that's the very beginning. And becoming a really good calibrator requires a lot of experience, a lot of practicing, working with different displays throughout. And new technologies coming on all the time. So we didn't have those in 2011. Laser projectors and OLEDs were not even on our radar at that point. Yeah.
One of the questions that gets asked quite a bit is, how many people actually get their TVs, projection systems, so on calibrated? Is there enough of a business out there for somebody to work full time in that field?
Well, it's worth, certainly worked for me. I wasn't sure back in 2011 whether that would work. I think you have to be willing to travel around the whole country. I think that so that's a part thing you've got to think about. And I don't think you could do that. I would love just to sort of be based in Leicester, because the driving's exhausting. But there just isn't enough work.
Yeah.
You really have to cover a lot of miles, and I didn't really expect that, but it's part of the job. So I think the other thing is, nowadays there are a few established calibrators, and the level of equipment now it's required to really.
Well, this is what I was going to come on to, is the level of equipment that you have to invest in.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, as you remember, you could get away with a Chroma 5. Do you remember those? The little suction ones. You could start with an i1 Pro, but nowadays you're dealing with narrow spectral power distribution devices like lasers that require a little bit more than an i1 Pro 2, which I think it's got something like 9. I may be wrong, but I think it's 9 nanometers resolution. So you need something a lot more expensive now. So the cost of the equipment has gone through the roof to become a professional calibrator.
Yeah.
And plus also on the courses that certainly we run, there's been a change. We don't really get any hobbyists anymore. It's become much more professional. We get a lot of colorists. So this is professional graders who are working on your film and TV content, and they want to come because they want to know how they want an accurate display that they're working on. So it has changed.
Yeah, absolutely. So, there are a lot of costs involved in setting yourself up if you're going to do it professionally. How much, you don't have to give me a specific answer here, but roughly ballpark, what is the cost nowadays?
Well, I'm carrying over £20,000 worth of gear. So, it's a Jetty spectro radiometer, which is £8,000. You've got a Klein, your colorimeter. You need a pattern generator like a Meridio. So maybe, between £2,000 and £5,000 for one of those. You've got the cost of the training course itself, which is a professional course. So it's running into, a couple of grand. And you need the software like Calman or Color Space. And both of those are, at least £2,500 each, something like that. And then you have your annual costs related to subscriptions and all the rest of it. So it's changed a bit since when we trained in 2011.
And then as a consumer, how much are you looking to pay to have your display calibrated these days?
Well, it varies. I mean, people charge different prices, but I would say in between, something like between £250 and £350, depending on the calibrator. And you can expect to pay travel expenses on top of that as well. The petrol it's gone ridiculous, hasn't it? Especially if you drive around the country in a Mustang.
That's probably not the best mode of transport to use if you're traveling around the whole country. But there you go. So there's that side, there's a professional side. What about enthusiasts? So people who just want to do their own TV and, they don't have 20 grand to go and get the meters that you use and equipment that you use. So they want to do something, but they want to do it themselves. They don't want to pay the $250, $350 it is to get it done.
Yeah, and that's how I started. I actually, I got a Spider. God, they were that was awful. And that is the problem, I think, with hobbyist devices. There are meters that hobbyists can buy, like the i1 Display Pro, about maybe a couple of £100, but they all come with a degree of error in them. They're not as good as the professional, like a Klein, and they need a profile against a Spectro. So you can buy software like Calman for LG, Calman for Panasonic, which means you'll be able to calibrate that display, but you're restricted to that brand. So you've got to decide what you're going to work with, basically. And if you want to do it with a projector, you'll probably need something else as well. So you can do it, and you can have fun doing it, and you can learn about calibration. But if you want that last degree of accuracy, you're going to need to hire somebody with slightly better equipment.
Yeah, okay. So we're going to come back to this in a little bit later. But for anybody that's listening now live on YouTube, or if you're listening a little bit later in the week for the recorded version, give us your views. What do you think? Is it something that you'd be interested in learning? If AV Forums were to go back and do what we did back in 2011 and provide training at a reduced cost, is that something that people would be interested in taking part in and so on? Give us your thoughts, give us your views. We'll come back to this one in a few weeks, or not a few weeks, we'll come back to it after CES. I'm forgetting where I am. So we've got 2 more podcasts this year. But anyway, thanks, Jules, for the roundup on that. Again, it's a subject we'll keep coming back to, and we're going to have more guests next year. So we're going to be looking at colorists coming in, telling us exactly what they do in terms of producing films and what they're looking at and how they do their job on calibrated displays and so on, and how you can have the same thing at home. Right, so let's head over to Ed, album, playlist and vinyl of the week.
Yeah, I'll be reasonably quick on this one. Album of the week is a band I'd never heard of before. They are Swedish. They're called Les Big Bird, bird with a Y. And the album's called The Eternal Light Brigade. It's all a bit weird as a setup, but it's a bloody good listen. Really, really enjoying this sort of spacey, psychedelic, mad rock, basically. Thoroughly enjoyable. It is available on vinyl, but I thought I'd give that to a different album. This came out the week before. The Les Big Bird came out this Friday, just gone. This came out before. It's the second album from an artist called Sunda Ark. It is Nightlands. Earlier in the podcast cycle, I recommended an album by a group called Marconi Union. Sort of gentle synthesis of analog instrumentation and digital noises. This is more of the same sort of thing, really, but it's a very, very good pressing. I've had the opportunity to hear the pressing. My one hasn't turned up yet because it's going to be a birthday present for me. But I've heard somebody else's, and very good it is too. Both of these are available to listen on streaming services if the fancy takes you, and I recommend that you do so. They're both jolly good. Playlist. Tidal is in with a playlist. Gothic Americana. Now, this is a bit of a weird one. I've been joined by a cat. This is a bit of a weird one. I don't regard every single track on this as gold. You won't necessarily want to put this on play and work through 5 hours and 33 minutes start to finish. But when it's good, it's outstanding. And there are artists I'd never heard of before, and I have been absolutely mining their back catalogues as a jumping off point for a category of music that I don't consider myself terribly well versed in. This is everything that Tidal used to do brilliantly. They haven't done one of these for ages, and it's absolutely sensational. I really, really enjoy this playlist, just mainly because I've learned about artists that I will now be picking up swathes of their back catalogue and probably costing myself a fortune. So, yes, all good.
Well, all good recommendations as always, so you know where to find those. Right, so just wrapping up this week, what have you been watching on the telly box, and what do we recommend, Jules?
Oh, well, I have been away, so not a lot, but I know somebody was in I'm a Celeb, so I was watching a bit of that. And
I suppose somebody had to.
Yeah, well, Owen Warner did very well, but he plays in our football team, so no doubt we'll be having some Bush Tucker trial at half time on Saturday.
Excellent.
But I also watched on Kaleidoscope, because it's not available. It's not even theatrically available here until late end of January. I think the new Kate Blanchett film, TAR or TAR, however you pronounce it. She plays a conductor, and that was really good.
Okay, bus conductor or
not a bus conductor, an orchestra conductor. Whatever
orchestra.
you know.
Okay.
Yeah, really good film.
Excellent. Ian, what have you been watching?
Not a huge amount. I've been quite busy. I did watch Slumberland, the new sort of family fantasy on Netflix, which was a lot of fun. Although it's quite emotional. It's the kind of film that wants to get you emotional, and it typically works. Also, about a month or so back, I watched A Good Nurse, and Netflix recently put up a documentary that covers the film. It's called Capturing the Killer Nurse, which is like the true story behind the film. So it kind of made quite an interesting kind of follow up to that. So it's a couple of recommendations there.
Okay, excellent. Doug?
I've been starting up having regular movie nights with my 8-year-old daughter. So I've been getting into the Night at the Museum movies, which I had never seen. So I've seen the first one now and the second one in the space of the past week. Quite enjoyed them, actually. And the other thing I've been watching is Pepsi Where's My Jets on Netflix.
All right.
I don't know if any of you have been watching it, but
No,
it's
is it worth
absolutely, it's
on my
absolutely
list.
fantastic.
I had a recommendation from a friend, so yeah, it's on the list of things.
It's so good. They're absolute chances. So the premise is that in the 90s, I think it was, Pepsi were giving away these points. If you buy a certain amount of Pepsis, you get Pepsi points. And in one of their adverts, they said if you get something like 7 million points, it was towards the end of the advert, it kind of built up. You get a cap, you get whatever, a TV or whatever. And then 7 million points, you get a Harrier jump jet. But what Pepsi forgot to do was to have a disclaimer underneath. So someone quickly did the maths and worked out, actually, I could buy 7 million Pepsi points for considerably less than the price of a Harrier jump jet. I could make lots of money out of the Harrier jump jet. So they litigated against Pepsi to try and get the jump jet out of them, and Pepsi were having none of it. But it's fantastic just to see the kind of brazenness of some of these people who are trying to get a jet out of Pepsi.
And you're talking about they spent millions on this, didn't they?
on the Pepsi.
Buying the points to try and get the.
Well, they worked out that that actually it would cost them millions if they bought the Pepsi. But then they found a Pepsi. I don't want to give too much away.
All right, okay.
But they found out that they could shortcut and spend a lot less. Which just wasn't persuasive to Pepsi, unsurprisingly.
Excellent. Right, Ed, last on the list.
Well, it's been very formulaic for me. I am thoroughly enjoying MasterChef The Professionals. I love that program. I love that program. Long-term listeners will know that I am inordinately fond of it. And Taskmaster season 14 is reaching its climax, and thoroughly entertaining it is too. I've enjoyed the cast this year. They've played off each other nicely. I'm impressed at how they are maintaining the quality of tasks. There's generally something every single episode that makes me laugh like a drain. If you've never watched it, it's now all on Channel 4 Catch Up. And as I say, as far as I'm concerned, it is one of the very finest British comedy series this century. Please give it a moment of your time. It is addictive.
Totally agree. Brilliant.
Excellent. Okay, well, that's our recommendations for what we've been watching. And that's it for the podcast this week, the Hardware and Movies podcast. We return on the 5th of December, so next Monday. And then we have our Christmas special on the 19th, where we have both the teams together. So those are the podcasts coming up. But my thanks this week to Jules, Ian, Ed, and Doug. Thanks so much, guys.
No worries.
Cheers.
Thank you.
And if you enjoyed the podcast, then of course you can like and subscribe. You know all the things that you do on YouTube. Hit this, do that, and the rest. You can also bookmark AV Forums for all the latest reviews, news, and video. And of course, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and so on. AV Forums is the handle on those services. And of course, if you listen to us a little bit later in the week through a podcast service and allow you to leave a rating, then please do. Hopefully 5 stars out of 10. I'm Phil Hinton. Thank you very much for watching and listening. And of course, you can join Kaz and the Movies team at 8:30 for the Movies podcast. Good night.